What's up guys, TV.Warzone here. In this video I'll tell you exactly what the lead and bullet drop is for the meta Swiss K31 with the new reticle. I worked on adding new vehicles to the cheat sheets and finally covered all available vehicles. The Swiss is the first weapon that includes a cheat sheet for all types of movement. Does that deserve a like? We'll cover how to hit targets on foot, broadly go over all vehicles including the helicopter, and we'll even cover how to hit parachuting targets. Now, many of you requested if I could go more in depth in these videos, so that's what I'll be doing in this one. Let me know if I should change anything. All feedback is appreciated. Soon I'll gather and analyze data on all snipers in one go, so that we can compare them and categorize it on playstyle. Since I can't really make any comparisons yet, my approach will be a bit more high over and will include some form of speculation. Now, I see three types of playstyles when it comes to sniping. First one is close range for a very aggressive playstyle, I would say up to 75 meters. Then medium range for a semi-aggressive playstyle from 75 to 300 meters. And lastly, long range from 300 meters and up for a passive playstyle. You should only pick up the Swiss for the first two playstyles, aggressive and semi-aggressive. The loadout I'll cover today fits best into the medium range playstyle, the semi-aggressive from 75 to 300 meters. So we have the Groove Suppressor for increased bullet velocity and damage range. As I said, also for sound suppression obviously, and a vertical recoil control. Then we have the 24.9-inch combat recon, mainly for the bullet velocity but also for the fire rate and of course the effective damage range. The 5mW laser sight for aim down sight time and the aiming stability. The fast mag for reload quickness. And lastly we have the Serpent grip for the ADS time. So the ADS is 433 milliseconds with this loadout, and it has a rate of fire of 35 rounds per minute. So as mentioned before, I will be categorizing all snipers into three playstyle categories and collect more data so that we can compare actual stats. For now, I don't have anything to compare and the data is incomplete. What I will do though is let you know what in my opinion makes a good sniper if you're an aggressive, semi-aggressive or passive player. So this is still work in progress. I pretty much did this in 10 minutes and represents my first thoughts. So if you have any comments, any feedback, let me know. This Swiss build is for semi-aggressive players. So let's start with that. Red stands for not important, orange for kinda important, and green for important for that specific playstyle. So first we have the bullet velocity. In my opinion it's not that important because this is something you can train and improve on. So I come from Battlefield, so I'm used to sniping with actual projectiles versus hit scan. Once you get familiar with a weapon, know how much to lead and what the bullet drop is, and have built up your muscle memory, you'll be a god. Now movement speed while scoped in, for example, is something I can't improve by training. It's just a game mechanic. So I would say that's more important. Besides that, let's add some math. Like let's say we are targeting a person at 200 meters distance. He's tactical sprinting, fastest way of moving. The ZRG has a bullet velocity of 1203 meters per second and the Swiss has a bullet velocity of 1056 meters per second. Now the lead for the ZRG would be 67 centimeters and for the Swiss 71 centimeters. And that's just a difference of 4 centimeters or 1.6 inch. And that's at a distance of 200 meters. Honestly, it kinda annoys me when everyone is saying, oh wow, you didn't put the fastest barrel on, this loadout sucks, you need to have the best barrel. And I'm like, dude, first of all, the differences aren't that big, except you're sniping at like 500-600 meters and someone is tactical sprinting, yeah, then I get it. And second of all, if you train with a certain build, know how much to lead and build up your muscle memory, then it really doesn't matter what the bullet velocity is. So that's kind of the reason that I personally don't really care that much about the bullet velocity. The damage profile, not sure about this one yet. I simply always aim for the head, so that's a one shot. I do think though that it's important to get a kill with 2 shots to the chest, but I didn't test any damage profiles yet, so I can't really tell if the Swiss needs 1, 2 or 3 shots to the chest. To me, the damage profile feels solid on the Swiss. Yeah, it's alright. The flinch resistance, very important. So at these ranges of 75 to 300 meters, you'll be battling a lot of ARs and LMGs, and you want to be able to fire back while they are emptying their entire magazine. The aim sway isn't bad on the Swiss, and since it has perfect recentering, I don't mind that there is a bit of sway. So then the recoil at 75 to 200 meters, the target still appears quite big. So even if it kicks up a bit, I don't really mind. Hip fire, we obviously don't need it at these ranges. So the rate of fire is very important in my opinion. Especially if you're playing trios or quads, you just need to follow up your shots as fast as you can before they start pushing. So mobility is also important. You need to be able to dodge those bullets. Let's give you an example for the mobility when you're not scoped in. So I was running in the open, which I did on purpose, and I was watching some videos of T.Captain.X, and no, he did not suggest to avoid cover, but he does have some great videos on how to improve your movement, and I was putting it into practice. So my tactic was to dodge his bullets by zigzagging and slide cancelling, and I was simply waiting for him to miss a shot so that I could take my shot while he was reloading. I was able to pull off this tactic and yeah, put him to sleep. Now check out T.Captain.X on TikTok or find him on YouTube. Both links are in the description. He's a great guy, has great content. Just check it out. The ADS, I would say in this case, is quite important. So you want to be on par or beat someone with an AR/LMG. Luckily, most of them equip the 3X, which hurts their ADS quite a bit. Once they start shooting, even though the Swiss has decent flinch resistance, it will be significantly harder to hit them. But if you can crack them with your first shot, they will most likely back down and start blading if they can get behind cover. Simply wait for them to peek again, which gives you the advantage because you're already ready to fire. This time go for the headshot, or you can of course push. I would run this Swiss with an SMG or AR setup as an SMG, but in the end, at these distances, you don't need the fastest ADS possible. Reticle, I think you need a clean reticle to be able to properly see the target at 200 plus meters. So they appear small very quickly. For example, the Kar98 default reticle, the shitty triangle, pretty much covers most of the target at 200 meters and above. I was actually quite comfortable with the old Swiss reticle, but definitely prefer this one. Awareness of surroundings, that's something I just made up, I guess. I would say this is very important. You don't want to scope like with the HDR that covers up everything of your surroundings. So at 75 to 300 meters, there is always a chance that someone flanks you or another team shows up all of a sudden. You don't want to be blindsided when this happens. The Swiss has a very nice scope, so no problems over here. Now let's take a look at how all types of movement compare to each other. I tested the movement speed of all vehicles, and obviously we already had them for targets on foot. So we're going top down with the fastest vehicle at the top of the list. I bundled vehicles that have a similar movement speed. The heli is by far the fastest, very hard to hit. The amount to lead is crazy. Then we have the tech rover, dirt bike, ATV, parachuting and SUV. These are the bundled vehicles. These have a similar speed, thus the lead is similar. Actually, the only vehicle that's pretty hard to hit due to its closed structure is the SUV. All the others are fairly easy once you get the hang of it, and on most of these vehicles you'll usually have the entire team in it. So the odds of at least hitting someone is pretty good. The cargo truck or the Big Bertha, pretty slow. The lead is significantly less than with the vehicles I just mentioned, but because the window is so small and the head of the target isn't entirely visible, it's one of the hardest vehicles to actually land a shot. Now the train and operator on foot, if they are tactical sprinting, is very similar. It's just a difference of 3 kilometers per hour or 2 miles per hour. Shooting people out with the train is so easy if they are standing still. Now let's take a look at how I build up these cheat sheets. Name of the weapon and attachments are at the top. Again, this sheet only works if you don't change the muzzle and barrel. Now you can swap any of the other attachments. Right below you'll find some of the main stats like bullet velocity, ADS and rate of fire. Now if it's a vehicle, you'll see the bullet velocity and speed of the vehicle in kilometers per hour and miles per hour. The legend is only included on the sheet for targets on foot, white icon for walking, gray for sprinting and dark gray for tactical sprinting. Now you can recognize a tactical sprint by the weapon will be pointed up in the sky. You can always aim at the same mark, so no matter the distance, always aim at the same mark. This is because the bullet velocity remains the same and the movement speed of the target remains the same. So the only thing that changes is the travel time. If you shoot someone at 100 meters and right after at 200 meters at the same conditions, the travel time of the bullet will double. This gets entirely compensated by the object, which scales down the further away it's positioned from you. So you can always aim at the same mark no matter the distance. Finally, let's cover a couple situations. We'll start with a running target, then a target in a vehicle, followed by hitting targets on the train and the helicopter, and lastly parachuting targets. First, let's see what sheets there are. So we have the sheet for targets on foot, for the tech rover, quad, parachuting targets, helicopter, jeep, dirt bike, Big Bertha and the train. and you can find them all on TV.Warzone.com. So first example, this guy's tactical sprinting at a distance of about 430 meters. As mentioned before, it doesn't matter at what row I look for the lead. Look at the dark gray icon for tactical sprint. I should be aiming at the 3rd mark, and the bullet drop is 1.5 mark. Now I aimed at about the 1st mark, which isn't enough. So while testing, I wasn't able to find people in all of the vehicles, so I wasn't able to shoot them out of it. But as mentioned before, the lead for the tech rover, dirt bike, ATV and SUV are very similar. I do have a clip of shooting someone out of the SUV. Now I assume the vehicle is almost at its top speed, so let's aim close to the 2nd big mark. It's actually the 8th mark, and aim a bit above the head. I've taken this clip before I actually had this cheat sheet, and to hit the driver I should have aimed way in front, but you know, with duos, trios and quads there usually is more than one person sitting in the vehicle. Luckily for me. So in this first version of the helicopter, I've only taken a scenario into account where the chopper is flying perpendicular to you and isn't changing its altitude. Now, I assume it's flying pretty much at full speed of 88 kilometers per hour or 55 miles per hour, which means I have to aim just beyond the last mark. Now, I love shooting people off the train. It's so easy yet satisfying. Unfortunately, I don't have the sheets yet when someone is actually moving on the train. Let me know in the comments if I should add those variables as well. For now, this sheet only applies to persons that are standing still. Now, the great thing about the train is that the speed doesn't change. You can always aim between a 3rd and 4th mark. And in this example, the guy is at about 450 meters away. I aim a bit below the 1st mark, and for the lead, I aim at about the 4th mark. Now let's take a look at hitting parachuting targets, and it gets very interesting and a bit more complicated now. This sheet actually only applies for certain situations. So while parachuting, they move horizontally, but also vertically because they are falling, kind of due to gravity. And we have to take both factors into account. So let's first take a look at some clips and explain why the sheet only applies for certain situations. Now in these clips you'll notice that I'm aiming below the target, which makes sense, because they are losing altitude, so I have to take that into account, plus the bullet drop. But I'll also show you a couple clips where you'll have to aim above their head. And I believe this is due to the angles, but I'll figure that out later. For now, let's take a look at the situation the sheets actually applies to. Now the first thing you have to do is you have to identify that you have to place your crosshair below the target. So next, identify what the flight path is and place the center of your crosshair approximately to where he will be in 2 to 3 seconds. Now most players follow a straight path and don't zigzag while parachuting, so this should be quite easy. Now the lead, when he is perfectly perpendicular to you, is at the 8th mark. Make sure to even aim further ahead, so you have some time left to make some small adjustments. We will use a combination of the ambush plus tracking technique, and we ambush him by aiming in front of him and wait for him to cross our path. So that's exactly what I do. Then I offset a bit to account for the bullet drop. Now the target isn't moving towards the center of your crosshair anymore, but slightly below it. So no matter the distance, aim at the 7th or 8th mark, and depending on the distance, take an X amount of bullet drop into account, which in this case is close to the 1st mark above the center of your crosshair. Now I actually aimed a bit too low and too far ahead of him, but luckily the hitbox is quite big, so yeah, it can be forgiving, and I did get the headshot. That's it again. Visit TV.Warzone.com for all sheets. If you enjoy this type of content, drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace out.